wabarakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We want to welcome all of us on this platform to our lecture series for today. Today, without wasting much of our time, we want to go into the lecture proper. And our resource person this evening is my very good brother. We have been together as far back as our days in the faculty, University of Ilorin. Dr. Abdullahi Soli Wishola is a Dai. I recall in those days that we used to come together for various engagements. So I want to appreciate him. He's a senior lecturer at the Department of Islamic Law, Faculty of Law, Kwara State University, Molete, Nigeria. I'm aware currently he's on sabbatical at Istanbul, Turkey. So I want to thank him for graciously accepted to make this presentation, even though I know I know he's very weak. He's just coming up health-wise. May Allah continue to strengthen him for us. The topic of our presentation today is Waqf. Actually, the end result of this presentation is going to be about Waqf sharing. But we restructured the topic so that we can have the general perspective of what Waqf is all about. And I'm sure he's going to dovetail into the real Waqf sharing proper. Waqf, an instrument for Islamic religious infrastructural development. Dr. Abdullahi, Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إنه من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We give thanks to Almighty Allah for all His favors upon us. The peak of His favors on us is making us Muslim. We pray Allah to continue to strengthen each and every one of us. I want to use this opportunity to thank my brother, my mentor, the man who trained us in a critical thinking of Islamic activism. So it's not surprising that despite all the worldly favors of Allah upon him, he continues to uphold and identify with Islam, because that was what he actually trained so many of us for. So we pray Allah to continue to preserve our Dr. Motiu Agoke and all the team at the No Dull Movement in Islam. So part of reason why I just have to take up this is because our opportunity to share our thoughts on very important issues like this is part of our jihad activities. And I want to believe that during the time of the Prophet, if somebody is sick and is able to come up a little bit stronger, and any act of jihad comes up, he will not hesitate to participate. So that is why I have to just accept this, because it's another opportunity for me to share my thoughts on what is very dear to me, and that is the issue of Waqf. So may Allah accept this from each and every one of us as an act of ibadah and strengthen us in our health conditions. Jazakumullahu khairan. So you will pardon me for my voice, just coming up like my brother said. So the focus of this presentation, well, I want to be sure that I'm being heard. I want to believe that.
Very well, very well. Go ahead. We are hearing you.
Okay, thank you. So the topic is Waqf, an instrument for Islamic religious infrastructural development. So I've divided this presentation into the following: introduction, conceptual clarifications. Then we look at Waqf approaches and techniques for religious infrastructural development. Then I'm going to look at some case studies so that we assess them, whether the problem with them, so that we appreciate exactly how practical what we are talking about is. And then I'm going to draw a conclusion. We all know that Islam is a total way of life, and there's no issue that cannot be addressed to the Islamic religion. Recently, a video was shared where somebody who went into the moon was praying, and he tried to explain how they try to observe Salah there. So that is to show that in every situation and every aspect of our life, Islamic law has provision for any issue that we may be confronted with. And we can see this in Quran chapter 5, where Allah says, "Ma farratna fil kitabi min shay'in." So for that reason, we as Muslims can only look for solution to our problem in Islamic law. If we don't do that, we will continue to miss our focus. It is unfortunate that Muslims are today notorious in public appeal for funds. We often see appeal here and there for the sick Muslim, for this mosque, for this and that. So this is very pathetic. And the practice has also reflected in appeal for infrastructural development and religious infrastructural development at that. I am not aware of any flyer that has been circulated where an appeal is being made for construction of a church. But we have so many of that being done with respect to mosque. So that is for us to see that there is a problem with regards to religious infrastructure. So, and all this appeal, unfortunately, they create more problems than they solve. Because we just hear, like Yoruba would say that, Alolagbo, Agwabo. People will only hear that they are raising funds for certain infrastructure, but nobody will ever hear about how such infrastructure is eventually handled and the fund realized. So for that reason, Waqf is very much available to solve this problem if properly employed. So that is why we want to expose ourselves to the potentials of Waqf as an instrument for Islamic religious infrastructural development. Now, the focus question in this lecture, like lawyer would do, that the issue for determination is this: how can Waqf be explored to address Islamic religious infrastructural deficit in a sustainable manner, such as mosque, cemetery, Islamic center, health facilities, and so on? So let's bear this question in mind. And this is what this discussion is going to address, inshallah. Now, Waqf, there is simple definition that most jurists have agreed upon, is to define it as tahbisul asli, what is bilu thamara, that is preserving the original property and dedicating its fruit or benefit to the services of others. It is what we all know as sadaqatu jariyah. That is a sadaqah that when you do, you will still preserve that property itself, while the property will be producing some benefit, which will be serving those who are in need of such services. So when we are able to do this, what we call waqf, and that is why sustainability is very important in waqf. Waqf by its nature, we have to understand that ownership of waqf, to regardless of some juristic argument, belongs to Allah. Once you have made any property as waqf, it's no longer your own, it belongs to Allah. And the objectives of waqf essentially is to seek the pleasure of Allah. It's more or less like an investment to for our hereafter. Like we do invest in this world for the rainy days. So the same thing, if you want to invest for your hereafter, the best is to consider waqf. And the management of waqf also has a kind of official prescription. It has rules and regulations, which makes it different from the ordinary sadaqah. Because when you have done sadaqah, the person you have given the sadaqah to has become the owner of that property, and it can do whatever it so wishes. So it is an ijtihadic product. It is a product of ijtihad. And this makes it so elastic that we can always explore waqf in order to address so many of our socio-economic challenges. And it is within mu'amala, because in Islamic law, we talk of mu'amala, we talk of ibadat. So waqf is within mu'amala. That is when you want to compare it with zakah. Somebody once said that zakah is more or less like the faridu, while waqf is like a nafila, which we can do. So it's within mu'amala. So for that reason, the issue of talking about bid'ah will not arise in matters of waqf, because it's not a matter within the ibadat in the scope of Islamic law. And of course, waqf has some pillars which must be put in place before we have a valid waqf. The first one is donor. We must identify the donor. Like we are going to see different types of donor. The donor may be an individual, one single person, or we can have a group donor. Then the property itself, which is called the mawquf, it has some principle. The property must be one that is halal, which is recognized as property in Islamic law, and which is capable of producing benefit. You cannot make something that is not beneficial as waqf just for the fun of it, because it is the use of such property that will be accruing reward to the donor after death. Then we must have clarity about the beneficiaries, that is the mawquf alayh. Then the terms of the waqf itself, condition, the sigor, must also be clearly stated. And of course, we must have mutawali or nazir waqf, which is called the manager. So these are the pillars that must be present in waqf. You will see that all these are not required in even zakah or even sadaqah. But for waqf, it is a kind of institutionalized sadaqah, so to say. So that is why we have all these pillars. Then one very important thing to us in Nigeria is people always ask that what is the difference between waqf and trust or foundation or endowment? We have so many Muslims who have registered foundations, who have registered trusts. There are a lot of differences between it from the law and the Sharia. The ownership are different. In Waqf, like we have said, ownership belongs to Allah. Why under the law, the trustee is deemed to be the owner of whatever that you have endowed. Then, of course, the objectives are different. The objectives of Waqf is to do something that will be bringing reward to you after death. That is an act of worship. Why that of charity? I mean, a foundation is usually just mere charity that, okay, I also want to do some kind of a humanitarian impact. Then in terms of management, there's also difference between trust and Waqf. Then Waqf has some constraints. It must be perpetual, though there is provision for what is called temporary Waqf. But usually, Waqf is expected, once it is done, even if it is a temporary Waqf, within the period that you have endowed that Waqf, it becomes perpetual within that period. You cannot revoke your Waqf once it has been done. Even though some scholars are of the opinion that Waqf is revocable, such as the Maliki Mazhab, and that is what led to their recognition of temporary Waqf. But even at that, it is believed that the moment you do your Waqf, it stands and it becomes perpetual. Then inalienability, you cannot alienate, you cannot share Waqf, and I say, okay, some of us, a group of people, we have done Waqf of certain property, but there's now a kind of misunderstanding among us. So let's alienate. Let's alienate our Waqf. Let everybody take his shares. It's no longer possible. Then it cannot be revoked once it has been done. Then we have different consequences, legal consequences of Waqf. Once Waqf, a property is made as Waqf, it can no longer be inherited. It cannot be sold. It cannot be mortgaged, and it cannot even be gifted. It must remain Waqf. Once a Waqf is always a Waqf. Then we have different types of Waqf. We have Waqf that is called Waqf al-Khairi, which is non-family Waqf. We have Waqf Hali, family Waqf. Then we have a mixture, hybrid of both. You can combine both Waqf Hali and Waqf Khairi together to give us what is called Al-Waqf Al-Mushtarak, which is hybrid of both. Then movable and immovable Waqf. You can use movable property and immovable property to do your Waqf. Then it can be single or group Waqf. Then we have what is called cash Waqf and Waqf cash. Cash Waqf is monetary Waqf. That is the Mawquf. The property made as Waqf is the money. While the Waqf cash is monetized Waqf. What this means is that the Mawquf itself is not the money that is made available by the donors. They have a target property which they want to make as Waqf. So they monetize that Waqf. That's why we call it Waqf cash. Then we have productive and consumptive Waqf. Some Waqf will just be consumed. They cannot produce anything. Like for instance, if you make a Waqf of mosque, the mosque will be consumed. It cannot produce in terms of generating another form of Waqf or income. So it's to be consumed. So that's why we said we have serving Waqf and service Waqf. We have some Waqf that may be made to service certain other Waqf, as we are going to see the importance of this. Then, like I said, we have permanent and temporary Waqf. And we also have de jure Waqf and de facto Waqf. De jure Waqf are certain things that when you do it, they are automatically considered to be Waqf, even if you don't declare that you have done a Waqf, such as building a mosque and allowing people to pray there, or you make your land available as cemetery, and you allow people to bury the corpses there. So even if you don't say you have made such land as Waqf, once you have allowed people to be burying their dead bodies on that land by virtue of law under the Sharia automatically becomes Waqf, and that is what is called the de jure Waqf, while we have de facto Waqf, that if dispute arises, it is only by fact that we can establish that actually such properties was made as Waqf. For instance, if somebody has a shopping mall and it is claimed that he has made such a shopping mall as Waqf, while some of his heirs are contending that such was not made, so it will have to be established by fact before we agree that it was actually made as a Waqf, and such will be Waqf de facto. Still on the conceptual clarifications. So when we say instrument, because we say Waqf an instrument for Islamic religious infrastructural development. So we mean tool or strategy. Then what do we mean by Islamic religious infrastructural development, which I call IREL infra? So we must note that we have different classes of infrastructure. We have public infrastructure like road, airport, school, hospital. Then we have private like accommodation, water, estate. Then we also have commercial infrastructure like shopping mall, hotel, hostel. Then we could have social infrastructure as well, like hospital, resident buildings, orphans, and aged houses. Then we have religious infrastructure. So what make up of religious infrastructure? So we have two approaches to understand what constitutes religious infrastructure. If we look, use the approach of Ibadah perspective, that anything, any object, project that will support propagation of the religion of Islam is an Islamic religious infrastructure. So if you are putting up any project to support the propagation of Islam, then such will be considered as an Islamic religious infrastructure. For instance, if you are building a mini clinic for a mosque, a central mosque, even though it's a clinic, but you want to do that to support the mosque, then it becomes a religious infrastructure. Or we can use the Maqasid perspective, that any project that we put up that will support the objectives of Islamic law is itself a religious infrastructure. So that's why we say that any project that will support realization or protection of any of the 5 cardinal objectives of Islamic law is also an Islamic religious infrastructure. The 5 cardinals are protection of religion, ad-din. So such as we have mosque, then protection of an-nafsi, life. For instance, dignity of human person is what we want to protect when we put a cemetery in place as an infrastructure. So it will be both a kind of for the protection of an-nafs as well as ad-din. Then, like where if you do water Waqf, that can be for ad-din and nafs as well, because there perhaps you provide water for a mosque. So that will be religious infrastructure as well. So and so on and so forth. So now, what are the Waqf approaches and techniques for Islamic religious infrastructure? We need to understand this, that we have an approach which we can adopt if we really want to, we want to achieve infrastructural development through Waqf. Now, the approach is what we call Waqf cash approach. That is, we will raise funds for such a project, which is monetized Waqf. And the technique we are going to adopt is Waqf Share. a kind of subscribed Waqf. We will make people to subscribe to the Waqf, to the fund which we want to raise. And we can do this by adopting either of the two models. We have Istismar model, that is investment. How come that we never invite people perhaps to come and invest in symmetry? In some countries, Islam Sorry, I had a disconnection there. Please, can you still hear me?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay.
You may have to share your screen again.
Oh, okay. No. Okay, can you see the screen now?
Yes, but I'll put it on slide presentation mode.
I'm doing that now. Is it done? Is it okay? Okay. Can you see
Yeah,
my
it's
slide
okay
here?
now.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So the first
Yes, it's
approach,
okay now.
the approach, we are going to use one, just one approach. That is Waqf cash approach, where those who want to put all the Waqf, they will contribute. They are going to raise the fund. Then the technique is Waqf share. That is, we must have a clear picture of how much you want to raise. Then we divide it into shares, which people will subscribe to. And this can be in two models, in form of istismar. That is, even if you want to put up an Islamic religious project, it does not mean that we cannot invite people to invest. For instance, I think I was aware of a university being proposed where people are being invited to invest, but I couldn't trace that fact very well. So that is a very good way to go. For instance, there's nothing stopping us to put up a symmetry by which we will invite people to come and invest. And we will design it in a way that people will be able to have value for their investment. If that is the way that we will be able to achieve our desired project, then it can also be Tabaru'at model. That is, we invite people to donate, which it will be by way of donation. So whichever way that model that we adopt will be okay. Now, the Waqf cash process, it has processes. The first one is we have to identify who are the contributors, the donors. Then we have them to contribute the money based on the shares that we have made. Now, that will be donation. The money they make available is not the cash, it's not the Waqf. Because in some quarters, they are calling people to come and do cash Waqf. Whereas what they are asking them to do is not cash Waqf. Because what they want to make as Waqf is not the money that people make available. So at a stage, the money people contribute, which they donate, will be in form of contributions or donation. Then we now transform it to be the Waqf cash. that is An-Nuqud lil-Waqfi, which we are going to use either using two options. The option of a direct Waqf project, such as using the money to build mosques, schools, and so on and so forth. Or we can use the option of indirect Waqf projects that we will invest the money to build certain houses, hostels, shopping mall, and so on and so forth. So that whatever that is generated from that will not be what we now use as the benefits for those that we have invited, who have been declared as the beneficiaries of the Waqf. So direct Waqf, there we will have the Waqf maintenance fund. Then we have the income revenue returns, and we also clarified the Waqf. Then there will also be some percentage that is set aside for the Waqf managers, because Waqf is not just a matter of feasibility that people will expect that because it has to do with religion, that people should not be remunerated. So Waqf is a kind of entrepreneurial, Islamic entrepreneurial scheme, which can be used. So the manager themselves will also have certain portion. So if you want to structure our Waqf for infrastructure, we must always take the manager, those who are going to be involved, into consideration and ensure that we make appropriate honorarium allowances for them from the Waqf, and that is the best way to structure it. Then let's now quickly look at the two models. The first one is investment model. Under each of the models, we have different products that we can adopt. So we can adopt Waqf Mudoraba model, by which the Waqf as an entity, we go into a Mudoraba agreement with the donors, the investors who want to invest, if we are adopting the investment model. Then we bring money, they will invest, and we will manage the money properly so that they can get their money back and they'll get some kind of a return, while we also achieve our infrastructure. Then it can also be in form of a Waqf Musharaka, as we are going to see in a case study, that those who are the promoters of the Waqf themselves have made certain money available to support that Waqf project. Then they can invite others to now be into the Musharaka in that Waqf. Because in Musharaka, both parties would make money available, unlike in Mudoraba, where one party is the Rabbul Man and the other one is the Mudori. So the investor in the Mudoraba Musharaka, Waqf Mudoraba, they will be the Rabbul Man, while the Waqf will be the Mudori. Then we also have Waqf Sukuk. I believe that Sukuk is now popular, but we can also integrate Sukuk into our religious infrastructural development. So by making it Waqf in such a way that those who are donating, they will know that they are not only financing that project for social benefit, but they are financing it for also to have it as Waqf, which they have assisted to facilitate. So we also have the option of Waqf Sukuk under the investment model. Then the Tabarru'at model, where it will be a pure donation. It can be pure donation that people donate and they know that they have donated for the Waqf. Then it can, and this one will be permanent, it will be complete. Or it can be partial or hybrid of Tabarru'at, that we have, it will support Waqf Musharaka, like you have said. They can donate to the Waqf in form of a corridor hazard. They will loan some money to the Waqf, and which they will be able to claim back in form of a partial tabaru'at. So this will be temporary and it may also be permanent. It depends on the agreement. Then there's need for us to know that there are some documentation which must be put in place if we want to do our infrastructure development properly through Waqf. The first thing is Waqf deed. If we say you are putting up a project as Waqf and you are inviting people to contribute, you must have a clear Waqf deed, which is called Waqfiya or Hujjatul Waqfi, that we show the agreement or the terms and conditions of those that are promoting the Waqf. So what does it entail? That those who want to donate will be able to inspect such Waqf deed and know the terms and conditions of the Waqf they are going into. Then there should also be Waqf subscription form. Often we see flyer, come and donate, come and donate. So this is the account. If it is Waqf, people must have Waqf subscription form where they will know that, okay, how many shares are they subscribing to? And we will know how much is each share. Then after they have subscribed, they must be issued with Waqf share certificate so that they will know that really they also have an investment in that Waqf, whether it's in form of investment, it's smart, or it's in form of donation, complete tabaru'at. Then after that, we must have Waqf subscribers register. It's not a matter of money are just coming in, we don't even know who are the donors. If it is Waqf, we must do it properly so that at any point in time, even in future, if anybody wants to study such Waqf, they will have record to make reference to. Then the beneficiaries register and the Waqf management record, as well as annual report. Then there must also be a Waqf audit report as well. Then the parties will have the promoters, which may be a special purpose vehicle. We can specially register a company for the purpose of a particular Waqf project that we want to promote. Then we must have donors. Who are the donors? Who are those that we are targeting? We must know them. Then the beneficiaries, the managers, the consultants. There are different consultants that must be involved in a properly structured Waqf. And this include Waqf Sharia consultant, legal consultant, accounting and finance consultant, project consultant, supervision consultant, and so on and so forth. So we should stop getting things done by those who are not specialists in what we want to put on. So whatever project we want to do, we must involve relevant consultants, relevant experts. Now, let's look at some case studies. Before then, we need to understand that when you issued your Waqf prospectus, Waqf cash prospectus, it must contain the following. Promoter, we must be clear in the flyer, the prospectus you are sharing. Who are the promoters? What is the target capital you want to raise? Then how many numbers of shares you have? For instance, if you want to raise, okay, we are going to see in some of the case studies, number of shares, cost of each share, then who are the beneficiaries? What is the purpose of that Waqf? What is the type of Waqf you are putting on? Is it a family Waqf? Is it a consulting Waqf? Is it a public Waqf or private Waqf? So we must be clear about the type of Waqf. Then what is the description of the Waqf project itself? Then who are the bankers involved? And here, we must observe, as we are going to see in some case studies, it will not project any Waqf promoter well if you are calling for people to come and donate to an Islamic religious infrastructure, and your banker is not Lotus Bank, it's not Jaiz Bank, it's not Sterling Alternative, and it's not Taj Bank. but you are using some other banks that are not Islamic. So that one itself, we give some kind of concern. So we should look at that. Who are the bankers? Then the fund managers. Who are the fund managers? Because the bankers will be the fund custodian. Why we must be clear about who are those that are directly involved in the fund management that we want to raise. Then who are those that will be the Waqf manager?
Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
That's what I was trying to do, but you kept putting it on.
Don't use audio. Dr. Abdullah, maybe you can just use the audio. That network, we are just trying to manage since.
I've switched off his video, but I kept switching on again. Okay, yeah, unmute yourself and continue.
Can you see my slide?
No, you have to start the slide sharing again, but don't put on the video again because the reception is poor.
Oh, okay.
So just share your slide, continue with the audio. I think it's better with the audio without the video.
Yeah, it's better. Let's see the slide.
Let's see the slide now.
Okay. Can you see the slide now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. Okay, continue.
Okay. So we have the proposed Waqf location must also be stated clearly. Then if there is any conflict of interest in terms of those who are involved, it must be clearly stated. Then the Waqf consultant certification, who will certify that he has examined the Waqf structure and everything, and he certified that it is in line with the international standard practice. So all these things must be clearly stated in our prospectus. And this will give confidence to those who want to invest. And they will know that it's not just, okay, you want to loan the money for you and Allah. So that will not be the case, just like that. Now, let's look at some case studies. Now, what we are talking about is not peculiar to Nigeria. Even in Malaysia, this is a kind of Waqf cash. They want to raise money for Tafiz Center. And here, as we can see, we don't know how much they want to raise. But they only say that at least if you can contribute 10 ringgit, 10 ringgit here now is more or less like maybe 1,000 naira. So they only give the slot without stating how much exactly they want to raise. So we must use all this content that are expected to appraise the prospectus that is being shared by anybody that is trying to raise funds for Waqf. Then here is another one in Nigeria. They want to put up a construction of a Waqf medical test project. That is the project. So who are the promoters? Let me see. We have their slide here. Construction of a Waqf medical center. So who are the promoters? I think the promoter is Islam and Sustainable Development Initiative. So do we have details about them? Here is the other part of their prospectus. The problem they want to solve, that is, what's the purpose of the Waqf, then the project, scope of the project, so they are contained here. Now, beneficiary, yes, they said Islam and Sustainable Development Initiative is the beneficiary. This is not correct because they are the promoters. They are not the beneficiaries. So how would they be the beneficiary? They can rather be the Waqf manager if that project is eventually properly put in place. So there are a lot of things that are still lacking here. So the total fund they want to raise is 52 million naira. But they are just asking people to donate without having a clear that 52,000 naira, how much of shares is it divided into? Then what is cost of one share? So that from time to time, we can know that, okay, out of the total number of shares that they have, this so number have been subscribed to, it now remains this so number, which they must be updating those who have subscribed to that Waqf from time to time. So they have the Jaiz Bank as their banker, so that is very commendable. So we can see this now. So if we appraise this, we see that they still have a lot to restructure in order to have a proper Waqf structuring for this project. So that is about that. So this is another one, which is similar to that one, but it's not the same. Here they want to contribute to our 1 billion naira cash Waqf. So the first wrong is that they call it cash Waqf. It's not cash Waqf because it is Waqf cash. Cash is not the Waqf, it's not the Mawquf. Rather, it is the project, the health integrated project they want to put in place. So we have seen that they want to raise 1 billion naira. So this 1 billion naira into how many shares is it divided into? Into how many shares? Has it been divided into? Is it, and what is the cost of each share? Is it 1 million per share or 5,000 per share? So how do we want to know that this 1 billion naira has eventually been raised if we don't have Waqf subscription form? So how do people, it's not enough that we just invite people to donate. There must be subscription first so that we know how many of the shares they want to take, and that will go a long way. So here is another case study. They want to raise 30 million naira fund for Muslim cemetery. So other than help acquire abode for Muslim corpses, acquire Waqf for yourself or family, assist the Ummah, these very Muslim cause at home, achieve everlasting sadaqah. Then they give account number. We can see the name of the promoters, but who are the beneficiaries? Then how many shares? How do we want to know how much has been raised? So these are some of the things that a Waqf, if you use Waqf approach, then we will have things better done. So here is another case study. So here, hand the joy of giving, an expanse of land for dawah activities, Iftar Sahih for 1,000 fasting Muslims. So how can Iftar be a Waqf? So the money that will be spent for fasting cannot be Waqf. Even though here they are not saying they are raising Waqf, but being a project, it will be better if they structure it in a Waqf. Of course, if they want to be feeding Muslims, so they can have as part of the Waqf project, a kind of a Waqf kitchen or Waqf Ramadan kitchen, which will be a project on its own. And they will be that kitchen, they will keep it, and they will have it properly structured so that people will know what they are investing to for their hereafter. Then recently also, this one also shared, donate. Muslims, it could be possibly your donation will lead you and your family to Jannah. Yes, these are good attraction. But here now, apart from the account, how much are they expecting? Like this one now, we can see the level at which the mosque is. Why can't they clearly state that, okay, we want to raise this amount of money for the roofing of the mosque, for the plastering of the mosque? Then people will know. Then how many you divide it into shares, so that people will know how many shares they have in roofing such a mosque. So this is what a Waqf, if properly explored, can do for us. Now, we must understand the problems with the current approaches. One, there's problem of accountability, the problem of transparency. I'm aware that growing up, we know of some mosques that while we were small, they had continued to take feasibility life for the building of the mosque. And up till now, such some of those mosques are never completed. So that is the problem of transparency. If we don't use workful approach, then confidence, people will not have so much confidence. They will just give like, let's even give, you want to know, we give, we leave you and Allah. If you use the money, it's left for you. If you don't use it, I've done my own. That is not a good attitude. Then time frame. How long will it take to continue, to complete such a project? If we don't change our approach, we will be having projects, Islamic religious infrastructure abandoned eventually, or taking so much longer time for them to be completed. Then the problem of proper management, attraction to eternal worthwhile project. Apart from all the weddings of the Quran and hadith that are stated in those flyers, thinking that such will attract people. So it is not so attractive because people are ready to support, but so many really want to be sure that whatever Islamic religious infrastructure they are contributing to will be the beneficiary of such their fund. Then begging tendencies, because we don't use this good workful approach, it has now turned Muslims to beggars that we beg virtually for everything. So these are the problems. Now, what is the way forward for sustainability? There is what we call al-waqfu al-waqfi. That is workful upon workful. If you are putting up a workful that is not going to generate income, don't make it a burden for people. You should create another workful that will be generating income to service that workful. So for those who are building mosques all here and there, if you build mosques for people, make sure you build a shopping mall or an estate that will be serving that mosque. So al-waqf al-waqf is a servicing work. It's an income generation work. In fact, it is a kind of enterprise workful. If you want to go the way of business in our workful, then the workful al-waqf is an approach. Then we can use a kind of corporate workful model. So in conclusion, workful is considered as the third sector of the economic in Islamic law. So it is a multidimensional scheme, and it is a product of ijtihad. Therefore, not susceptible to it is susceptible to innovations. We can innovate, come up with new schemes, new ideas in using workful to solve our problem. So Islamic religious infrastructural deficits among Muslims can be effectively addressed through workful. The proper approach is in workful cash using the technique of Waqf Share via istismar or tabaru'at model. So this done, Muslims can better approach and solve their religious infrastructural deficit bi'iznillah. So أقول قول هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahu Akbar. We appreciate and thank our brother. May Allah continue to increase you in your health condition. May Allah give you quick recovery. We have listened to him, and without taking much of our time, because the time difference will not allow us to stay longer. Engineer Tawakkalt Adua, you have a question?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
This is Malam Abdusalam Tolani, the husband to Engineer Tawakkalt Adua. I'm using my wife's phone.
Our wife, SLS husband, go ahead.
Doctor, Jazakumullah khairan.
Go ahead.
I'm really humbled and grateful for the opportunity. There are two questions. Timo Fejeki, Dr. Ishola Obawa shed the more light. Alakoko, I'm privileged to be secretary of Makbarat Forum, Ogun State. Any challenge in the management, especially the financial aspect of.
Sorry, sir. I think we have some non-Yoruba speaking audience.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry. My first question is to the effect that as I'm privileged to be secretary of Makbarat Forum in Ogun State, taking care of Muslim cemeteries. And one of the constraints or the impediment has to do with financing the project. Number one, people, both individual and corporate bodies are contributing, but there is challenge of proper coordination. Then the same thing with management of the cemetery vis-a-vis the fiscal implications that you have mentioned in your presentation. In fact, what really attracted me to this forum is the aspect where you mentioned the issue of Makbara. So can you kindly shed more light on how to overcome those financial constraints? Not that people are not contributing financially, but the financing presently is not sustainable and it doesn't meet the anticipated projects. I think Dr. Agboke can even give credence to the one that architect Ademoye, last panel accept it as Ibada, is coordinating. So up to now, the project is very far away from its success. So how can we?
Hold on, Doctor. Sorry, Barrister Balogun. Let me get you clear. You said you are the coordinate. You are coordinating
secretary of the forum.
What is the forum for? What do they do?
It manages all the Muslim burial grounds in Abeokuta. Every second Saturday of the month, we go to different burial grounds. We have a calendar from January to December, and we also engage in education, advocacy, and
you think all the Makbaras, all the cemeteries, the Islamic cemetery, they key into this, they are aware of this?
Aware of
what you are doing, the forum?
Yes, in fact, my question is, how does Waqf come into
That's
this
what I'm
project?
saying, because there's a fundamental problem. I know your question. For example, I know there is a cemetery in Adigbe that has its own body of coordination, that has its own modus operandi, being managed by some individuals.
Dr. Agboke, you have not really, with due respect, you have not really comprehended my question.
Okay.
The ownership, I'm not talking about ownership. We are not owning any of the cemetery. The cemetery belongs to the owners, the communities, the association, or whatever. The cemeteries belong to them. We are not talking about the owners.
What does your forum do? What does your forum do?
Number one, every second Saturday of every month, Muslims gathered at a particular cemetery. We take care of the cemetery. Number two, we educate the management, the owners. We educate them about the Sharia implications of doing this, that, and legal implications. Number three is that we intend to be organized. In fact, we did organize one seminar, but we intend to be organizing seminar, workshop, and some other activities towards sustainability, because the way this majority of the cemeteries are being managed, they are far away from the dreams of the owners. And one of the factors has to do with finance. That's why I gave an example of that of the one that architect Ademoye has been managing. Up to now, it is still far away from reality.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll come back to that. I think Dr. Abdullah, you got the question, Abi?
Yes, I've noted it.
That's the first question. The second and the last question. The second and the last question has to do with the Waqf in respect of management of mosque. Yes, some people donate, as you rightly said, some people donate mosque to the community without proper documentation. And after those donors might have passed away, there may be some kind of legal implications. Now, personally, I advise them that they should go into a kind of a deed of transfer or set up a trusteeship or whatever. But how does Waqf come into this challenge of constructing mosques for the community and financial sustainability of that kind of a mosque, which has been given to trustees, not belonging to the builder or the owner or the family, but it has been given to the trustees. I hope the question is gotten.
Yes.
Okay.
It's okay.
Those are the two
Any other
questions.
comments?
Those are the 2 questions.
Okay.
Khair.
Well, yeah. Any other comment, question? Okay, Dr. Abdullah, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, hold on, sorry. Adigun Afatai. Adigun Afatai.
Sama alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
Well, firstly, I want to appreciate the doctor for that beautiful presentation. May Allah reward him abundantly. My question goes thus: when he was making the presentation, he highlighted some issues related to Waqf as regards his registration and that of trustee. I want him to shed more light on it so that we'll be able to forge ahead and to know more about it. Thank you, sir.
Biggie.
Salam alaikum wa rahmatullah. One of my
Alaikum
questions is the last on the trustee. The second one has to do with investments, making Waqf investments. Based on what we have in the country, I'm happy you are in the country, you have left, but you know what is happening here. What will be your advice to whoever, maybe an organization that is interested in having Waqf as investment? What are the processes that they should follow for it to be successful? Thank you, Anova.
Okay, Dr. Abdullah. Go ahead.
Now, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The first question, I think there is a kind of mix-up. The committee that Brother Abdesalam is talking about, I think they are just, without being derogatory, I'm very sorry to say, they are just a kind of feasibility group who want to see to the better maintenance of those cemeteries. So on their own part, I think it's another thing entirely, because they don't have any stake, so to say, officially in those cemeteries, except they properly partner with those who are in charge of those cemeteries.
God bless you.
So that is number one. So in that regard, they will continue. We encourage them to continue to do their own best and not be so much overburdened by the attitude of those owners. Of course, as part of their mandate, it will be good if they can take some further steps as they have decided to be enlightening those owners to be better off in the management. But all still boils down to the fact that when those cemeteries themselves were first institutionalized, they were not done properly, because people think that it's just enough to do something that will benefit people religiously without considering how such will be sustained. So the first advice would be that for those owners or those who are in charge of the management of such a cemetery, they should look much more inward. There is one suggestion that I want to make, which may appear to be somehow radical, given our mindset in Nigeria. What is wrong in going into the business of cemetery in burial, Islamic burial services? What is wrong in that? We have in Lagos some neutral cemetery that are being properly managed, and people pay for it. So it's just a matter of how much people care. So it's also part of the way that those management, they should not just believe that people have that right to believe that they can just bring their dead bodies without giving, making any contribution. So if it will be necessary that they structure how much people will pay before they will bury people in such cemetery, that will be a good option so that they will have a better management of such a cemetery. So they should look into restructuring the management of such a cemetery. And if the fund is their challenge, then they can begin to review how much people pay before they bury people there. Then in terms of financial sustainability, like you have said, if people put in place Waqf, it's not enough. If it is a consumptive Waqf like mosque, it is required that they should.
Doctor, yeah, doctor, please don't forget that financial sustainability in relation to the work of their committee to this Mokbara.
Okay.
That was what he was saying. How would they be able to sustain it?
Okay. Even for that, for their own activities too, they can put up maybe trying to develop a project like maybe shopping complex for that purpose. And they structure it, invite people to subscribe into that shopping mall, shopping complex. Once they know that, okay, whatever that is generated as rent from that shopping mall, they will be using it in order to sustain their activities. So that can be a good option. Because if they just continue relying, begging people for money here and there, that cannot be sustained, so to say.
Thank you.
Then for the community mosque, this is another fundamental issue that I hope that we have time to address. For those who are handling Waqf projects for especially foreigners, they are bringing a lot of bastardization into the system. People are converting such projects into their own personal achievement, so much that they will restrict the community beneficiaries from proper management of the mosque. Why at the end, they will not even give any support to them for the maintenance of such mosques. I think the advice would be that, and that is why we talk of Waqf deed. If anybody approaches any community now, they now say, okay, we want to give you mosque. There should be clear terms and conditions upon which you want to accept their Waqf. So if you are just so attracted by the fact that, oh, we have been looking for mosque all this while, and we now see somebody that will give us mosque, and the beggars has no choice, then at the end of the day, whatever that comes with it, I think they will not have anybody to blame. So the best thing is for such communities to ensure that they also bring to their own table terms and conditions upon which they want to accept such Waqf. And if they need that such Waqf to have al-Waqf and al-Waqfi, so they should request before they accept such a Waqf project that may be made available to them. Then for the CAC registration, you see, we have a complex country, which we ourselves are also making to be more complex. The first thing is people have the mentality that if you do a registration with a state agency, it's not international, it's not legally complete. So that is why everybody is going to the CAC. And from research analysis that we have looked at the law, every organization that is registered as Waqf, such organization is at best registered as a Waqf management, as a Waqf manager. Not that is the one that constitutes the Waqf, but there is conflict of law under the CAMA. The incorporated trustees are deemed to be the owner of whatever property that are put into their custody. And like we have said, Waqf does not belong to the trustees. So, and that is why we must always be clear, if anybody wants to do Waqf, they should indicate in their Waqf deed that even if they are entrusting it to such a incorporated trustee, they should clearly state that it is not meant to be the property of the incorporated trustee, but they are appointed as manager of such a Waqf property. And of course, part of the recommendation that we have made, which I'm happy that a lot of organizations are now using, is that when you want to register such organization, make sure the word Waqf appears in your name. If you want to register it, that, okay, ABCD or Waqf Foundation, ABCD Waqf Organization, so that on the face of it, it will be clear that such is meant to be a Waqf management body. Then for the Waqf investment and sustainability, the various infrastructure that can be invested to can also be invested into as Waqf. For instance, you can build an hotel as Waqf, as a kind of investment Waqf, so that whatever that comes from it will be channeled towards the beneficiaries which you have in mind. Or you can build even a school or a shopping mall as Waqf, and that will also be a way of handling our Waqf investment. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Any other one?
There's a question on the chat box.
Oh, okay. Why are the investment in the USD, GBP, and Euro, the Naira technically is not required in this investment portfolio? I don't understand, but Dr. Abdullahi, if you do, go ahead.
I don't understand.
Why can't you understand, Aguke?
So anyway, let me thank Dr. Abdullahi for the effort so far. But let me come back to this issue of symmetry either in Abeokuta or in Ogun State. I know as a fact that there are some organizations, in fact, individuals that have brought people together and established a befitting cemetery, unlike some of those ones that we are used to. And I know that each of them, they have the philosophy for establishing this cemetery. And they have brought people together as committee members with their philosophy and ideas, maintenance philosophy, and sustainability of the cemetery. Now, if we say we are coordinating, we are enlightening them, I think it is better for us to organize a forum for them, bring them together. If I bring all Muslims together and educate them properly, so that where we have noticed any inadequacies, we bring it out. When you say you are going around, I know one cemetery, they have a written document for managing the cemetery. And those who are there, they are people that are clear-headed and they understand some of these things, even though some of them derogated from some of these principles Dr. Abdullahi has actually expounded. So that is another discussion. That is that. Again, unfortunately, Architect Ademoye is not on this platform. I would have loved him to. Dr. Architect Ademoye's effort is one of such efforts too, trying to create an alternative. If you go to Lantoro Cemetery, it's already champa, already crowded. Which one again? Come to our own area, Olomore, crowded, not well laid out. These are the various efforts. I know Suribi is also making efforts somewhere in a legal axis. So these efforts are welcome, but we should just try and bring the owners or those ideas together. Let us bring them together. If you bring them together, we engage them in ideas. Like this presentation now, you bring Dr. Abdullahi to come and talk to them. Let's bring others who are versatile in aspect. That would be an added value for what they are doing. And I think that will have also obviated the people who are making that effort, the group, from the stress of looking for fund, because I don't see what the fund is is needed for. The coordination, like Dr. Abdullahi said, is a feasibility thing. There is no obligation to carry out anything. So if we have to put money there, there are other ways we can do it. Like Professor Agbola is here. All other people who are here, we can tax them, bring them money for your logistics and things like that. But for the real effort, is a very concrete arrangement, and people are doing it at various levels. And I think we should find a way of bringing them together. Let us talk to them so that we can end up doing the right thing and not just doing anything. Professor Adebowale, I appreciate Dr. Abdullahi, please.
Yeah, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. We are very grateful. We thank Allah for your life, and we thank you very much for the lecture. We pray Allah to give you more strength. We understand you are a bit down the weather, and then we want to appreciate your commitment, because I remember as at yesterday, when Dr. Agboke was sharing with me your chat on WhatsApp, where you are apprehensive of your health. But alhamdulillah, they're able to present, and we pray Allah to increase your knowledge and iman.
He is a journalistic brother. The struggle is too much, so you cannot afford to run
away. Allah to accept all the effort and sacrifice. But the audience that was able to join us today, we are very grateful for having you once again. We pray Allah to accept it from all of us at Ibadah. I think tomorrow will be our final for this year, inshallah. Our sister, Rashida Ibrahim, one of the assistant director in the laboratories of University Hospital, will be discussing with us blood transfusion Islamic implications tomorrow by 5 p.m. The last year our lives beyond tomorrow. So I want to say that Jazakallah to everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.